Finding your own path and keeping your motivation up might be challenging for many at the moment. Unfortunately, especially in these times, it is quite hard to find a role model, and you don't want to look into the celebrity world every single time because let's face it, these situations where they started from and where they are now are quite different from the life we have. So today I have someone who found his own path and who kept his motivation up. Hello and welcome, Shawn James.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I am so grateful for this opportunity and to share some of my own words.
Awesome. Thank you very much for taking the time. James, could you tell us a bit about your background? Where do you come from? Where did you grow up? What was your starting point?
Great. So, hello, my name is Shawn. I'm from the United States. I'm 22 years old, and I recently just started 2 years ago becoming an LGBT activist here in America in the states that I've lived in. The states I've lived in are New York, Pennsylvania, Florida, and Seattle, Washington.
Okay, so when we get that is a bit of a travel. So where do these different stations come from? New York, Pennsylvania, Florida, and Seattle. When we compare this to the European world, that would be like living in Germany, Italy, Portugal, and somewhere even further away. So how did this travel begin that you said you need to go somewhere else to find who you really are and to reach your goal which you set yourself? How did the whole thing start?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So how it started was I came out when I was 19 years old. And at the time I was working at Apple. And when I was working at Apple, it was a home-based job. So it was really difficult to meet new people, to explore my new sexuality, and to really be able to find people who had similar interests. Because where I come from, the city that I was born in, Poughkeepsie, New York, it was not the most liberal city. Same thing as Pennsylvania. When I moved to Pennsylvania, it was not the most liberal opportunity that I could have where I could freely express myself and feel comfortable being where I was. So that's how, in a brief synopsis, how my journey began. So at the time when I moved from Scranton, Pennsylvania to Miami, Florida, I really did a lot of thinking on how can I keep motivated? How can I make an impact in the world? And that's really what drove me and still drives me to this day. Wherever I go, I love to leave an impact on people, my community, and society. That's what drives me to wake up every morning. That's what gets me up in the morning every day. So when I made the move from Scranton to Miami, I had a goal that I wanted to become an LGBT activist. So I knew that I would have to go out to a major city, which was very different from where I was raised. I was raised in a smaller city with the population of about 20,000. So when I moved to Miami, the population was about 600,000. So it was quite a change. And through this city, Miami, I met so many different people. I met people who were from Germany. I met people who were from London. I met people who were from Japan, Australia, and South America. And this is where I truly began to realize that no one person is alike. And every person that you can come encounter with could bring such a different impact to your life and a different story, a different background. And using this, I created a business where I could bring people together. And it's been great ever since. From Miami, I realized that the weather was not for me, though. So that's when I moved to the West Coast and I moved to Seattle. And I've been doing the same thing here, just meeting new people every day, inspiring, impacting my community, people's lives, and the city as a whole.
That is, of course, a great journey. And when we now have people, because some parents who listen to this podcast, and these are people who normally work in free enterprise, they normally have good jobs, and they still say, I have a son or a daughter at home, and they simply tell me, I don't know what to do. I have no idea. I don't know what I want to do for a living later. What would you tell them? How can people know what is the right thing for you to do as maybe the first job or the next step in life? How did you find your calling?
Yeah, so there is no right or wrong answer. And as parents, the biggest thing that we can do for our children is acceptance, and allowing them to reach out on their own. So really, my real first job was at 17, and it was at a fast food restaurant, McDonald's. It was very basic, and obviously that's not the life I wanted to live. I wasn't happy, and I found no motivation working there. So the biggest thing is for parents is to allow your children to find what they are truly passionate about. And as freelance people, we find smaller things that are sometimes looked down on, like writing and music and art. These are all major things that if you have a drive and a passion to do, you can excel in without a doubt.
So when I have now, and that is something which popped up frequently in the questions, many people, many parents especially, said, I always have on the tip of my tongue to tell them, go get a proper job, but they know this is a phrase they probably shouldn't use. What would be your advice for parents, how to motivate younger people in nowadays times, which are, of course, due to the situation we're in, quite challenging?
So what I would say there is to motivate our younger children, we want to get off our cell phones. We want to get off of social media, because I really feel personally when we live in a world, social media, Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, all of these sites create a non-existent world for our children. And what we need to do, especially as freelance people, a freelance generation, is we need to go out. We need to meet people. We need to hear their background. We need to hear their story. And the best writing tips and the creativity flows most for me when I'm outside, when I'm on a beach, when I'm even in my backyard on a sunset. It's when I can do the best true thinking and the best thoughts come during those times. So what I would recommend for these parents is that we, transition out of these non-existing worlds that social media creates, and we get into the real life and start changing what's happening, because we do have a lot going on right now.
So to wrap this interview up, people will now, of course, think, okay, I might start my journey now, but let's face it, there will be setbacks. And normally there's more than one setback. And between starting and getting where you want to be might be weeks, might be months, but most likely will rather be years. And I'm sure that you had setbacks as well. So how would you tell people to deal with these kind of setbacks, frustrations, or even failure on their way to their goal?
Yeah, so setbacks are something I'm actually really used to. I'm so used to waking up in the morning and seeing these rejection emails and denials. I use those as motivation to keep going, because I look up to bigger people and I know that they have been through the same thing I have been going through currently. When I wake up and see that I was not accepted to a class or to a school, but I know deep within that it's not what other people think, it's what I know, and what I know I can do is what keeps me going. So these setbacks, yeah, they can bring you really down, but I try not to let them bring me down, because if I focus more on dwelling on these rejections and setbacks, then I'm not going to get far in life. So I worry about how I can change, what I can change, and how I can change to overcome these obstacles.
Excellent. I think that was very motivating and very inspirational for many of our listeners. So at the end of this podcast, there's only one thing I have left to say. Shawn, I wish you all the best for your future. And today, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate this opportunity, and I hope to be back soon.